Hello, and welcome to CFI Breakfast Bytes, a podcast that is brought to you by the World Bank Center of Excellence and Rabo Partnerships and Foundation. My name is Rubiga Sivakumaran. With the symposium behind us, we are entering a new podcast series, which is dedicated to strengthening CFIs around the world. In this first episode, we will look back at the symposium and discuss what it means for the way forward. I will do this together with Carlos Cuevas, Senior Consultant at the World Bank, and Bjorn Schrijver, Senior Project Manager at Rabo Partnerships. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you.
In November, the World Bank organized the International Symposium on CFIs together with various partners. Carlos, who gathered during these 2 weeks to share knowledge and learn about financial cooperatives?
Well, thank you, Ruby. I think the gathering was very unique in a number of different ways. We organized with the World Bank Center of Excellence in partnership, close partnership with 5 partners: Rabo Partnerships, DGRB, the German Cooperative Finance Organization, Desjardins from Canada, the International Credit Union Regulators Network, ICARN, and the World Council of Credit Union. 5 organizing partners that actively prepared and contributed to the technical panels, and in a way that was, to me, very unique. We don't see that very often, but it was incredibly productive. And between all of these partners, we put together panelists and moderators for one opening session, one closing session, and 5 technical panels from 25 different global, national, and regional entities. So the gathering of the participants in each panel was, for the most part, our partners' initiative and enthusiasm, I should say, and that made the event very unique. The knowledge sharing was really important. A number of different things came up. There were over 375 attendees from 60 countries altogether, and we put together at the end in the closing session kind of a number of cross-cutting themes that were highlighted in all these technical panels and the opening and closing sessions. And I won't go through each one of them, but I invite people to take a look at the blog that's in the symposium site that goes over these 6 different cross-cutting themes. Some of them relatively new in the general discussion about cooperative financial institutions, such as access to capital and integration in the general financial system. So that's again a very rewarding event, which again, here goes to what Bjorn is going to talk about later. It defined, in my view, a number of ways in which we can move forward towards strengthening cooperative financial institutions in the world.
Okay, more about the key takeaways can be read in the blog on our Center of Excellence indeed. We will make sure to include a link in the podcast description. For now, Bjorn, I'm curious to hear which moment during the symposium truly impressed you.
Yeah, thank you, Ruby, and thank you also for having me in this podcast. As Carlos already said, it was a very rich symposium, so this question is not easily answered. Let me just give a small introduction of my line of thought. We are very proud within Rabobank and Financial Cooperative itself on our cooperation with World Bank, where we try to strengthen financial cooperatives in a very dynamic, iterative process where we involve regulators, supervisors, the sector, other stakeholders, and because as a financial cooperative is very close to our hearts. The program that we came up with World Bank was inspired in the case of Albania, where you had a fragment savings credit cooperative network, which basically wanted to grow with clients, modernize, become much more financially stable, reach out to financial markets. And they decided to consolidate into one bigger financial cooperative institution. Nowadays it's called Fedinvest. The chair lady of Fedinvest was also invited into the symposium. She was a very big promoter of the new strategy and also a driver and enabler to get it approved within the cooperative network, but also by the regulator and the supervisor. And she had a very nice quote in her session 1, I think, in the symposium.
Yeah, let's quickly listen back to what the quote was. Why did this part of the panel session impress you so much?
I think it's a very complete statement, very rich in itself. where basically she talks about the value creation of financial cooperatives and the balance between societal impact as well as financial stability of the cooperative network itself as a precondition to add value to members and society. She also speaks about using smart technology, the modernization of the financial cooperative network, which is needed competitive also in the markets where competitors are active, and to be able to sustain the cooperative both financially and in terms of service delivery towards future generations. And I think that dynamism in the statement is very important.
Mm-hmm. Carlos, which moment would you like to take us back to?
Well, as Bjorn said, it's kind of tough to pick with all the interesting things that came up, but my favorite one is that overall the attention to women and youth. There was a special panel on women and youth, but in other panels also it came up as something to consider in a kind of really important way going forward. And so on the women and youth panel, I guess what I liked was the emphasis on what I call meaningful inclusion, both of women and youth. And I love the quote from Yvette Schoffen, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, and she's part of the Sicredi Brazil Aliança Women Committee. Sicredi has a very active program of integrating women and youth in the entire organization, and that's part of the reason they were one of the panelists in the Women and Youth session. Yvette's quote, she said it in very musical Portuguese, so I'm wondering if you're going to play it that way or in the English interpretation we use, but it was talking about diversity and inclusion. And she said, diversity is inviting me to a party, inclusion is asking me to dance. And that was, to me, a very graphic way of showing what's the difference between just having a diverse membership, but having meaningful inclusion of women and youth. And later on, Pim Moore from the Rabo Foundation in the closing session kind of referred back to this idea of being in a dancing floor with saying something like, we're going to be in a busy dancing floor going forward. And that's, to me, were two things that caught my attention in that context of women and youth participation, particularly in that specific panel. And about youth, and this came also in the opening session from Marianne Schumacher, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, from Rabo Partnerships, that attention to youth ensures the future of CFI membership. And that to me was also very forward-looking way of addressing this specific topic in CFI development.
And what made this so impressive to you?
Well, in my view, it emphasizes the unique position of cooperative financial institutions to reach and what I said, meaningfully include rural women and young people. And that comes from one of the cross-cutting things that I mentioned earlier about CFIs being local, community-based. There's a great potential of inspiring transparency and trust and transparency in the community, so that the proximity makes them uniquely positioned to integrate women and youth in their rural communities. So that's one reason I thought it was an important and impressive fragment, and also emphasizes the future of CFIs and what's important about it and what needs to be done today, now, going to kind of ensure that future materializes. And that's why, among other things, one thing that Bjorn mentioned in the chat in one of the sessions was, well, there's a business case in reaching women, for example, because they have different business activities and enterprises, and so the CFIs have to adjust and adapt their services and products to those particular demands that are in many cases different from kind of it's called mainstream male-dominated rural agricultural activity. So that's why I thought they were impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And while the symposium is behind us, this does not mark the end, but rather a start of things. Bjorn, what are the plans for the Center of Excellence and the FinCoops program in the year to come?
Yeah, there's. Thank you, by the way, Carlos, for quoting me from a chat, which is very nice. You paid a really good attention in this symposium. I think the whole symposium was a good success, basically because World Bank hosted it, but did not organize everything, and really invited stakeholders to really take ownership of part of the program and also bring all that content and rich experience in. And this is what we do want to take forward. One of the sessions that we had within the symposium was with the different stakeholders, how to go forward. I believe there will be a separate podcast later on in the series on this. For us, within the joint program we have with World Bank, we will be focusing quite a bit on the country work that we're doing. We are working in Ethiopia, in West Africa and in Colombia together with the sector as well as the supervisors, regulators to strengthen the sector. We're looking at a few other countries. And what we did notice is that the more stakeholders we can involve, the more traction we can get, and the quicker we can also adopt changes for the benefit of members and society, as well as for the financial cooperatives themselves. So we're definitely going to go forward on that and disseminate the knowledge through the Center of Excellence and try to see where we can create much more leverage going forward. It also brings me back to a quote that we had from Maximiliano Sainz, which I think is in Spanish, so I'll let it be expressed right now. And this loosely translates, of course, to we're all agents of change. And I think that is a very important message, because we all have a role to play in making the financial cooperative system a success, and not only for the financial cooperative system itself, of course, but we do see that there's a need for underserved segments, whether it's women, whether it's youth, whether it's the rural population or the agriculture sector at large in the various countries. These need to be supported with financial products in order to also make a leap forward in economic development. And this is, of course, what we're aiming at. And we need all the hearts and minds and corporate experience that we can get to make that successful.
Thank you, Bjorn and Carlos. Very valuable insights. In the next episode, we will talk about the topic of digitization and information systems. For now, thank you for listening and stay tuned.